Okay, guys, we are back with the Coach Trap podcast this week. Me and Dan Williams are really fortunate to be joined by an amazing guest, Chris Carl. Before we dive in to the podcast, just to tell you a little bit more about what we're about. 90% of coaches quit or fail. The real question is, will we be the 10% that make it? That's why we've got such a great guest on today. He's going to tell us all about his story, a little bit about how he's made it, a little bit about the people that he works with, and then we can obviously have a great chat to inspire all of you coaches watching this. Chris, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to know a little bit more about you, a little bit more about your journey, and then tell us about your coaching.
Thank you guys for having me here, first of all. I really appreciate the invitation. Yeah, then where should start? Actually, my journey began already in 2012. I was, working back in Germany as head of design for a big cosmetic brand. And 14 to 16 hours days were quite normal for me. And after 10 months, I can tell you, I just burned out because I had a very eccentric CEO who was never happy with my work. And at one day, I just collapsed in his office. And the day later, I got a sick note and I started just doing my stuff. So actually, how it ended up was that I was walking with my dog, and for some reason, I was walking at one point with all the dogs of my friends. People reached out to me and asked me if I'm a dog walker and dog trainer. I wasn't at that point. Yeah. What happened next was I became a dog walker and dog trainer. So I opened my own business over there. And back in 2015, I sold it, moved to the Netherlands. Long story. But the next big scenario was then in 2018, I was traveling here in Spain with my dog and my bicycle. Unfortunately, my dog, he became cancer. So he ripped me a little bit off money-wise. I had to pay some bills for veterinarians and stuff like this. And I had to get a new 9 to 5. And that was at one day. I mean, actually, it was a day before my first day starting working for Harley Davidson. To pay my bills, of course, I needed to get this new job. I had a complete breakdown again. So because my body was completely aligned with my life when I was traveling. So I think you guys might understand how that is when you're all the time around, you're living on your own terms. It's like you're really just living on your terms. And when my body and my brain misaligned in this moment, I got a big breakdown at home. And next day I had to start my new job. So what happens? I had to go to many doctors over here in Spain, and nobody could figure out what it was. So at the end of the day, I have been to a homeopath, and they figured out that I have just I'm living under stress, or I used to live under stress for way too much time. Yeah. So in my new 9 to 5, and that's actually it. And last year, friends of mine, for example, always when I met them or met their families over here in Spain, of course, I'm talking with them. You're going out, you're having drinks, you're having food. And at one day, friends of mine came to me and said, Chris, do you know actually how much you influence our family, your friends, and stuff like this? So people started to talk behind my back in rooms where I have not been in. And one specific friend told me that I have influenced a couple of family members of my friends without knowing it. So in a good way. And some of them, or let's say one plus her partner, they moved to Bali, for example. Another one moved out from Germany to another country and started something new. And this was for me like, let's say, an indirect market confirmation that, okay, me talking to others works nice. So I can help others to change their life on a deeper level for some reason. And so last year, I started just actually, no, it was the beginning of this year. I mean, on a deeper level, I started with LinkedIn. I started my own account. I started to share my story, to share my experiences. I studied a lot. I became PMI certified, not an ICF. I mean, I could do an ICF, I'm pretty sure about it, but I think the best coaches I have ever worked with, and I have a coach myself at the moment, are those not only with the certificates, but speaking from experience. And this is how I learned the most, and this is how I prefer to share everything with my clients, my current clients. And that's actually it, where I landed and where we found each other. So it's just, you're starting something and with action, comes motivation, comes confidence. And I started to share more and more and more. And nowadays, I'm very, very confident to share really my story on a deep level with everyone who wants to hear it, with everyone who wants to learn from it. And here we are.
Amazing. Chris, thank you so much for sharing. It's really interesting. I mean, you've got, a similar story, okay? And I resonate with a lot of that. Loved about that as well. And Dan must have heard me say this a million times. You can't lead others down a path unless you've walked it yourself. You know, the
Yeah.
idea of not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And I love
Yeah.
that. You've had these experiences, you've learned from it, and you've helped others. And obviously, for me, in terms of a coach and what we recommend to other coaches, Dan, isn't it? Is there's no far greater skill than storytelling, you know, in terms of like your own business. I absolutely love that. So one of the things, we talked about off air was maybe the differences between, countries, right? I know we were talking about difference between where Dan is in the north of England, you're in the Barcelona, and me in Chiang Mai at the moment. Yeah, cultural differences. Have you seen anything with that in coaching? Is there like, for example, what I say about me and my US clients, for example, is we speak the same language, but we're sometimes a little bit different in terms of our philosophies or outlooks or whatever it might be, right? Do you see something similar in coaching, or do you think it's maybe, one size fits all sort of approach?
For me, there is no one size fits all solution for everyone. I mean, there's something I have learned. We humans are so much alike, but on the other hand, we are so different. Yeah. Means at the end of the day, we are running all on the same patterns, but these are individual patterns. So because of our life experience. And when it comes down to countries, it's like here in Spain, for example, it's a complete different culture, right? It's a different culture than where you live, where Dan lives. And those experience people do in all these different countries shape them. And this is the reason why everyone has a different history, made different experiences, and everyone needs a different approach. Yeah. So this is why I, for myself, for my coaching, have developed an approach which figures in the beginning out, like we have talked about it, questions, in order to get to the ground, to the root where everything comes from, and working from there up. So this is the only way how it works, in my opinion. And yeah.
It's really interesting to talk about one size doesn't fit all, because the amount of times that me and Dan see people that have blueprints or frameworks,
Yeah.
and sometimes I just think, well, I'm not quite sure that's the way, that something that works for someone isn't necessarily going to work for something else. And it's definitely been our approach, Dan, hasn't it, with the coach trackers, to treat everyone differently. Everyone's
Yeah.
needs are very, very different.
Yeah.
Dan, have you got any questions for Chris? I can see you're dying to get stuck into it.
Yeah, so Chris, obviously your LinkedIn is doing very well at the moment. So I'd love to know how you kind of built that up, kind of tell other coaches what to do basically, because a lot of people want to get on LinkedIn, they want to get that kind of visibility, but they don't even know where to start. So where would you say is the best? What would you say to do to start?
What I have done is just really studying bigger creators. Unfortunately, I have also to say all these big creators, aka gurus, they always tell you there's a one size fits all solution for your business. I disagree strongly, because at the end of the day, you have to find your own voice. So this is, I think, the main aspect. And it begins really when it begins already with your banner. It begins with your tagline, your about section, if you have a service section as well, your featured sections. And of course, comes down to your posts every day. Depends on how much you post per week. But I mean, what I really can recommend everyone here is, first of all, find your own voice. Second of all, don't expect too much in the beginning. So the thing is, there are no quick fixes. Everything is a process. Business is a process. Life is a process. Everything is a process. So when it takes time, it needs patience. And at the end of the day, we just have to find our own way. I mean, how was it for you guys? I cannot imagine that one of you set up the profile, made one post and got thousands impressions, 500 likes, and a full mailbox with DMs. I cannot imagine that. And the only thing is really stay consistent, patient, and find your own voice within it. So using AI, for example, for me was a big game changer, but only in case of helping me as a non-English native speaker to get better in my grammar and my spelling, as well as in structuring of posts, for example. And of course, for brainstorming, it's also amazing. But at the end of the day, there's something in LinkedIn which I like to call it, become your own ghostwriter. So this is something you have to learn from over time, I think. And this is something that worked for me. But there's again the point, no one size fits all. So find your own way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And obviously, at the start, it's really hard to even know what to post, never mind to know how to get them into clients.
Yeah.
But for me, I started on Twitter about 2, 3 years ago. I got my first kind of low ticket client at 30 followers. That was back when I was getting like very little engagement, very little anything. But it took me like a full year to actually get to that level where it could replace my job, my income. So it takes a long time and it's a skill. It's definitely a massive skill. I think we talk about it a lot, how coaches are kind of, you need the two pillars. So you need to have that skill that you coach in and that experience to talk from. And you also need the visibility to get people to realize that you can help them, if that makes sense. So what do you say
Absolutely.
about that, Greg?
You know what? There's so many angles that we can. Mine's going crazy overload, Chris, with that story, especially the guru angle. And especially becoming your own ghostwriter. Take them with the extra, the best feeling when it comes to that's like finding someone's voice and writing like them, not writing like a guru. All about its authorized. There's nothing. But if you think to that guru, they do spell one star bits on because it starts. Yeah, it's easy to monitor. It's easy to put results on it. It's easy to. There is something then with mimicking gurus, isn't there, Dan, which we see with coaches a lot. All right, there's so many angles that we can go with this, finding your authentic voice. And I'm just trying to think, most gurus, in my opinion, are full of shit, but most of them are very good at marketing themselves. So if they're very good at marketing themselves, they don't fall into that trap, Dan, which is the 90%, right? They're the 10% who succeed. What is it? Is that how do you become that 10% that succeeds? And it's a great question for you, Chris and Dan, but
Mm.
still like the person who looks back at you in the mirror, the person that you're, is actually proud of yourself, happy with the message that you're putting out. That was a big part of my journey as well, by the way, when I felt real imposter syndrome at first. But then actually my real thing was what I really latched onto was helping other coaches. Actually like like I said, that story I told you, Christopher, I saw so many fail, right? That actually I wanted to inspire and help them. But Chris, what's your you got any sort of like inspiration like that? Any sort of I know you've got that life story and you talked about, coining your own your own copyright, which I love. Do you want to dive deeper into that? Any ways that you go with that?
I mean, there's something I have lately figured out because, like I told you, I love to study all the big creators. And for some reason, there's always something usable what they're telling you. So, which you can adapt to your own journey, right? So for me, it was, for example, right now, because I love to talk. I love to share my story and I love to collaborate. So creating collaborations was for me now the point a couple of weeks, which was a turning point in my entire journey and which helped me to, to not only get better, but I mean, now we are sitting here together, guys. So this is one of those points. And I had a couple of other podcasts before. And I want to increase my engagement in this field a little bit more when it comes to podcasts, when it's about sharing my voice, when it's about, to just or share my experience with others. Because what I have found out is when you do something with someone together, you're using their audience and your audience and you combine it and you can reach unlimited reach. So it's incredible what can be done with that when you do things like this rather than walking on your own. Because how was the sentence? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with the others. And this is something I never forget. And now I see how it pays out. And this is something I really love to do. And here we are.
Don't close yourself off. Be happy. Be excited about collaborating. Because one other thing as well, Chris, looking at this from an actual life coaching perspective, if you like, working online is lonely, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a time when you miss actually like being in a workplace or having things. So for me, I generally, I have my clients, which is one thing, but I actually missed that like office banter. That that work like sort of environment.
Yeah.
So I love this because I feel like I'm engaging in that sort of way. Dan, that's an amazing piece of advice for any coaches, aren't there? But is there anything that you'd want to add to that? Anything that maybe you could do to take that further? Any tactics? Because I've got one or two that I could probably think of.
Yeah, I think going on podcasts is actually potentially more beneficial to most people than creating their own podcast because it's a lot less effort, and you don't really need to like kind of promote it all the time. You can just promote it once, and other people are promoting it for you as well. So it's kind of a win-win situation. But the other thing I would do is, so if you're getting already some good views, some good likes on your posts, I would send DMs to people that you can help, especially. That is gonna allow you to make the most of your audience. So it doesn't have to be like selling in the first message, which is what most people do, which is what I hate as well, especially on LinkedIn. It's just creating conversations. So like, hi, I saw that you're doing XYZ. I'm also doing that. How are you finding it? That kind of thing. Just like having a human connection, which, like you said, Greg, is kind of similar to the office banter. It makes it a lot less lonely. And also, you can eventually convert those people into clients, into connections. You can go on podcasts, that kind of thing. So, yeah, DMs are definitely a massive thing for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Chris, just before I pass you over and we can talk about this, because remember, this is to inspire those coaches, right? Not to be the 90%, but the 10% who make it. Dan, I never forget what Jimmy Gibson said about the secret is something. So I went and made that a big thing of mine. I comment 20 times a day on 20 different posts. Try and, without AI, I physically sit down and write it. That was probably one of the greatest tips that I got. I had another guru who told me that I should try to create a cohort, almost like a mini community of people where we support each other's content. Right? I've tried to do that. It's really difficult. I have tried it, but obviously that's a great recommendation. But Dan, I've got one for you. I saw someone write the other day about 100 comments a day on X. 100 comments a day. That's like a full-time job. There's got to be a boundary of this sort of stuff. Because me and Dan talk about this all day. The amount of coaches we've had and say they create content for 4 hours a day, or they do more of that than actual coaching itself. There's got to be a boundary, isn't there? A time limit, or surely, not like we try to inspire Dan, like a few hacks, cousins, hacks, if you like. But have you got anything like that, Chris? Anything, Dan, you wanna add on to that?
If I can share my experience in that, I can tell you in the beginning, or let's say until August this year, for some reason, I was really following this approach of commenting as much as I can. And I did, and it worked quite well. But what I found is really the algorithm on LinkedIn, like most of the creators have found out, is changing, it seems like every week. Sometimes you see with commenting, a lot of stuff comes around. But like Dan already said, most value I got from the DMs. The DMs were from me, it's a highlight of the day, not only because I like to chat, but also because of listening to other people's stories, because it's very, very interesting what you can find out about people. So, from the psychological factor, it's very, very interesting. And I got most of my clients just because of the DMs and just because to listen to their story and giving value first. So, giving them really a help, like a free lead magnet, and then people are coming back to you at one point. And because if you give first without expecting something in return, this is very unusual these days, but it's what people appreciate and what people don't let you forget. And this is what our work should be about when it comes to marketing on LinkedIn, from my point. So this is how you position yourself, that people don't forget you. So, and for me, with the DMs, it worked excellent, to be honest. But I think there's more and more potential at the moment on LinkedIn, because way too many people use AI, like we have already figured out. And our stories we like to tell, we definitely have to tell in our own voice in order to stay authentic, to be ourselves originally, because people can smell AI, I think, a mile away. I'm not sure how you feel about it, even though when it comes to comments or to DMs. And yeah, this is from my point of view. Stay as you are, write as you are, write as you speak, or like you speak, and then people will notice you. Because what I have found out, not every potential coachee is for you, and you're not the coach for everyone in need of a coach. So you will attract, with your own voice, with your own authenticity, you will attract the right people at one point.
Yeah.
This is, I think,
That's what
works.
It's interesting you talked about that algorithm change. Sorry, Greg. The algorithm change on LinkedIn, I actually haven't talked about yet on podcasts, which is what I'm actually really excited to talk about it. So I made a post a couple of days ago about how the LinkedIn algorithm completely changed around 2 weeks ago, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, which is the biggest change it's ever had in the history of LinkedIn.
Okay.
So what now happens when you post a post is that it gets read by an AI. So the AI acts as if it's kind of like an expert in that field, and it
Hmm.
reads it, and then it decides whether it's going to add value to people who are also experts in that thing, or whether it's going to add value to people who want to know about that thing.
Okay.
So now comments, as we were talking about, comments matter like even less than they did before, because you could write as many comments as you want, but if the AI decides that your post isn't valuable enough to those people, it's still not going to show them that post.
Okay.
So I mean, you could do 100 comments a day, and it probably
Mhm.
will boost your engagement, but a little bit, but it's not going to boost it anywhere near like a good post will, like a post that actually provides value to the right people. And also in the posts, what's really important now more than ever is to kind of call out the people that you want to read it. So for us, we've been using the word coach a lot more in our posts because it's going to show the AI is going to show the post to more coaches on LinkedIn. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff, and there's a lot more to it as well. But comments, they're going to boost your likes potentially a little bit, but they're not going to boost your sales because you're going to get more likes from competitors more than clients, pretty much.
Can I ask you something when it comes to that? I just got up in a question. So, I mean, my ICP, for example, my ideal customer profile is quite widespread over industries, right? So, and it's leaders, founders, middle managers, everyone in need of sustainable high performance. So, would you say how you would? I mean, for you, it's easy. It's coaches, right? To
Yeah.
use this term in the post. What would you recommend me to use then in the post instead of just leader? Because leader is quite broad.
I
I
think
could use also founder, but yeah, founder is more specific than leader. But I would like to talk to the people in corporate
I think
as well as founder.
Yeah, yeah. I think coaches and leaders are both pretty broad terms. What I would do is with the clients that you've got already, obviously
Mm-hmm.
they're leaders specializing in something. So I would
Mm-hmm.
talk about that person, that specified person, like every post. So you could do a different leader every post. So it's going to attract different types of leaders every post, which is obviously what you want. So it gets a little bit more niche down. So it's not just leaders, you need to do this. It's if you're a specific type of company, you need to do this. And it's going to attract all of those people. You could post that, once a week, once every 2 weeks about that specific type of leader or that
Okay.
specific type of coach. Like we're talking about life coaches, fitness coaches,
Mm.
all of that stuff. It's just specializing a post to that speciality in your client, if that makes sense. So
That
hopefully
makes
that
sense.
answers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely,
Dan,
absolutely.
yes, Dan, I've got a good point for that as well. What I would do, okay, is I would go on Google Trends or Uber Suggest, and I'll try to be digging around about what my person is looking for. Me and Dan found out the other day the biggest personal development question asked in the world was about weather. People worried about the weather. So I wondered if you searched hard and fast enough about what it is that leaders are looking for. It's probably worries about AI, probably worries about Trump, probably worries about all that sort of stuff, finding out exactly what questions they're writing into Google. I would double check that on Uber Suggest and Answer the Public. They're a secondary app to look for these questions. Now, on LinkedIn, you can write articles, not posts. If you write an article, it shows up on SEO. So when they search on the Google or chat AI, whatever it is, the answer to this question will come up. Additionally, if you've got a newsletter, for example, on iPhone Kit, you can publish it. So if you publish it with those keywords, with that question, it will also show up on SEO. And is that the sort of approach that you would suggest for someone like Chris to, one, look for what his target market is looking for, and two, to put it in the right areas? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so not only like talking about leaders is important, but also the topic that they want to read about. Both are very important for the AI to push it more to those people. Because the AI will actually check what the consumers are actually doing on LinkedIn. So they'll see what posts they've engaged with before, and if your post is similar to that, or it's even better than that, in terms of the value it's giving, it's going to show that to those people. So I feel like this new kind of algorithm change levels the playing field a little bit. So you don't have to post 100 comments or have 10,000 followers or whatever. It's just how much do you know about that specific thing for that specific person. And if you do know a lot about it and you're valuable, it's going to show it to those people. So yeah.
Okay, so you mean we should focus, or every coach should focus more on geo optimization rather than SEO optimization nowadays, even though on LinkedIn?
They should focus on both, but they should really be, I mean, I talk about it a lot. They should be like a shark in a pond rather than
Yeah.
like a tadpole in the sea. So you need
Okay.
to like dominate that small niche for those specific people and those specific topics that they want solved, rather than be a guru and be like, this is how all leaders or all business owners can solve XYZ. It's not going to get you clients that way.
Sounds logic for me. No, thank you very much. It is, for me, it's high value
Yeah.
information because we all have to adapt to our new environment right now. And I think these are very, very good tips for everyone listening or watching. So yeah, thank you, man.
Good point. On top of that, Dan, just thinking about the right places to find the right people. What about communities? Not just on LinkedIn, but on X. We do know that founders, and high profile CEOs, they do actively, come a part of these communities. Would you look into those? Would you do something about those?
I think to start with, you could have a look at other people's communities that are similar to the people that you're trying to target, and kind of send DMs to them, talk about something you found interesting about them. Potentially, as you grow a little bit, you could create your own community, which is what we've done on X, what we've done on School. Once you've got those testimonials in from your clients and you've shown that you're good at what you do, you'll be able to help people kind of in more in-depth questions, like tailored questions for them, rather than, even though you're talking to those specific people on LinkedIn, it's not the same as asking questions and then answering them to specific people, which is kind of what we do with the podcast. Because if one coach has a question, chances are like a lot of hundreds of other coaches will also have that same question. So if we can answer that to one person, it's going to answer a lot of
Okay. No, sounds good. It's a very good point. Yeah. You said something very important, actually, testimonials. So
Yeah.
the thing is, I have a service page, for example, on LinkedIn, right? So people can give me a testimonial over there, and you have also a review section, or no, what's called a recommendation section, and so on. So first of all, I mean, I'm not sure how this plays into everything in the entire big puzzle of your LinkedIn profile. Is it something very helpful or not? This would be my first question. And would you recommend also to set up, for example, a page like or a profile for yourself on Trustpilot in order to get recommendation, link it with your homepage? Is there a marketing strategy you would think about which could work for coaches?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think a lot of people you see are posting, like just posting testimonials on LinkedIn, like, this person thinks I'm really good, please buy from me. That's not
Yeah.
going to work. I think the best testimonial there is a case study of how you've helped someone and
Yeah.
how that's resulted in like a big like advantage for them. That's kind of like a indirect testimonial basically on your posts. The recommendations section also is really good. It's not going to boost your posts, so to speak, but it's going to, for the people that do look at your profile, they're going to trust you a little bit more. And I did see as well your testimonials on your landing page. That's really good to have as well. So if people have already seen your content and thought you are good enough to kind of click on your website and they see those testimonials, that's just going to like bring them over the edge to book a call or buy a course or whatever that might
Okay.
be. But
Okay.
I wouldn't kind of go out of your way to go on other platforms like Trustpilot and stuff like that. I would
No.
just I would no.
Okay.
I feel like if people have already clicked on your website and they've already seen that you've got those testimonials there, they're not really going to be too bothered about going on Trustpilot. That's my opinion anyway. But yeah, recommendations are a good bonus for your LinkedIn, and testimonials definitely are good on your website. That's what we have as
Okay.
well.
Just before I hand you over, Chris, one thing that me and Dan have realised in this game is ever changing, always changing. What worked in 2014 or 2020, it definitely doesn't work now. I've heard Trustpilot come up a few times this week, which
Oh,
makes me think that maybe it's something we got to have a deeper dive into. Yeah, that isn't the first time I've heard that this week, which makes me think. So definitely something maybe for us to do a bit of research on and I actually think, does that influence people's behaviours and where they look, and obviously how much trust they have in you? Interesting stuff. I just want to say what an amazing episode. And Chris, what I thought was we were so aligned, not just in our beliefs in coaching, but actually like with the sort of strategies and stuff that we've got. And Dan, I think some of our listeners will get some great value from that. 10% content, 90% the awareness to write, in your authentic voice. Some great stuff there. Great stuff. Guys, thank you for joining us. Actually, just before we finish, where's the best place to find you? Or is that a silly question?
the best place where to find me. Oh. What a question. In summer at the beach, in the winter in the mountains. Absolutely, absolutely. LinkedIn, my full name is Cristopher Karl Knoll, so quite German. I'm from Germany, living in Spain, writing in English and studying Italian at the moment. Whatever language you prefer to speak with me, go for it. You can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, guys, thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed our little conversation here. I think it will bring a lot of value to everyone watching. And yeah, perhaps we see
Well,
each other in the future in real life or having another one.
that's great.
Who knows?
That's amazing stuff. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And whatever you do, don't fall into the coach trap.